What's going on? My name is Aaron Root, aka Azur, and we are live here in the green room. We're doing a little bit of a switch up from normal. We're usually, or in the past, we've done it on Sundays at 8, or at 5, excuse me. We've made a little bit of a switch. We're now doing these Wednesdays at 8. I'm really excited to have our first guest on this switch here, Mario Danza, good friend of mine. We've done some great shows together, and Mario, it's a pleasure to have you, man.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. It's a pleasure to be on.
Dude,
Appreciate you inviting me on this.
so excited. So setting up the IG live right now for people that are going to be tuning in there. Anyways, Mario, how have things been going, man? What's going on with your life in quarantine? What have you been doing? What have you been up to?
Well, as you can see, and most viewers that are probably watching that know me, this is the first time I've had this, guess you can call it a quarantine beard at this point. But besides that, man, I can't really complain. Obviously, with the event side, it's a little rough, but the company I work with, Artist Influence, we're doing a really quite big stuff right now, and we're working with a lot of cool artists. We're working with a lot of upcoming artists, so it's really interesting to see how the industry is really turning right now.
Yeah.
From all this live stuff to now everyone trying to switch to the live streams and just total digital all across the board.
Yeah, dude, 100%. Speaking of digital, let me just ask you. I've got the live on the YouTube, on the Instagram page. You want to hop in that Instagram and just request to host that?
Lunar Lounge.
Yeah, Lunar Lounge on IG. A little shout out. We got Mario Danza, who, by the way, guys, just didn't realize. Speaking of Instagram, did not realize how great this man's following was. I mean, talk about an absolute pop off in terms of engagement. We have a full on New York celebrity with us, and it is an absolute honor. I just did not know that I had met a celebrity when we met.
Well, I gotta say I got some good friends that kind of ride with me on that side. So, it's been really cool to see that everyone really connected and is getting together.
Yeah.
But shout out all the people that are watching. Shout out all the people that are tuned in, and hopefully I can crush it for them.
Yeah. Speaking of friends tuning in, we've got Austin Hennessy here on the IG Live. Austin, come on, you know this. Go to the YouTube page. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Let's get this started, man. We know how these green rooms, for those of you who have been here a while, what's up? We got Trust in here too. For those of you who have been here a while, what we like to typically do is talk a little bit about how we first met, because for those of you who don't know, the green room is all about essentially talking about the connections that come from the music industry, how those connections come about, what they lead to, and giving you guys some background into it. So, Mario, why don't we jump right into that? In terms of how we met, what was that, Joyride? We told each other we were going to look it up, but it was had to be a couple months ago.
Yeah, I did a little bit of my homework. So it was October 19th where we met. It was probably October 20th. It was like 2 a.m, but but around that time, Joyride, a big fan of mine. I've been of him for many years, since before the Skrillex. So it was really cool to see a show in production like that.
That's great. And we were, I think we were in the up part of, first off, RIP, pour one out for Avant Gardner, right? But we were in the upstairs part of, what's that part of Avant Gardner? What's that venue? King's Hall? Not King's Hall.
It's the Great Hall.
Great
we were
Hall.
in the Great Hall. I remember, shout out, I think it was Lion that introduced us. We were just sitting there, we did a quick introduction, and it was a little bit of a passing, right? I don't think I spoke to you like 2-3 months later, and I saw what you guys were doing at the time. I believe like Noise You and a few other shows that are really, spot on for what, we kind of do with TTYL and All About House. So, that's when I think I just kind of made the connection, and I think everything kind of grew from there,
Yeah, it was pretty funny because you're right. It was in passing, and I remember when I actually remember the moment where we met then, right? And then that was it. And then probably 2-3 months later, you hit me up. And at the time, I actually was like, I was racking my brain. I was like, who is this guy? And then I was like, oh, like that's Mario that we met at the show. And you're right, Lion did introduce us. And sure enough, That developed into a wonderful relationship. That I would be remiss if I didn't talk about what really actually kind of led that to even happen in the first place, which was our conversation that kind of led to that excerpt show.
Yeah, we did the quick show, excerpt, Quantum. I think I told you, like, Quantum called me like 2 weeks before and was like, "Hey, we have an open room. You think you could put a show together?" And I was like, "Well, usually I like a month, 6 weeks, but I mean, if you're offering me a room, why not? So it was cool. The show came out. It was a nice little Halloween thing. I think we had Kitty Pack, and then obviously our partner on that stuff is Tupol. Shout out Tupol.
Dude, shout out
for always
Tupol.
bringing out really fun shuffle crowd that the energy was just crazy in the room.
Absolutely.
And I think that kind of in New York City.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny. We actually had that pulled up, and here's another reason for you all to be tuned into the live stream on YouTube. But I'm going to go ahead and on for the IG folks. I'm going to actually turn my camera around, and I'm going to go ahead and load that after.
You take a right off the highway, walk down past some sanitation plant, under the bridge. You'll start to hear a low rumble.
Dude, shout out Nick.
Check your ID at the door.
Nick Macias.
And you'll see bright lights and people moving to the beat. You'll know you're in the right place when you hear.
Done a lot. Everybody over there is doing on. Shout out Bruno. Really done a great job at that venue, even though it's in a location you wish it was a little bit closer. But people still come out. The vibe in that room. The way everything is planned out. It's just really crazy, the energy, and it's not super commercial. That's really for hardcore fans to really come out, for artists that you bring out, and it's a cool experience to be in that room. And if you haven't been there, definitely check out Quantum, hopefully when everything opens up.
It's funny you say it's not commercial, but in my experience, I mean, outside of like the Webster Halls and the Avant-Gardners of the world, their production team and visual team is the most on-point team I've seen. I mean, I remember we handed them the visuals for that set, for that show, and this girl just went off. She was so good at setting the visuals. She had it timed perfectly to all my drops without even me telling her, what my set was going to look like. And I was really impressed by them. So definitely, for those of you out there who are in the music industry and wondering how you can support, when this is all is over, Quantum has put some good money into renovating their space. And let's go ahead and support Quantum when this is all over, for sure.
Definitely, for sure. I think it's great spot. There's been a lot of acts that have been there that are pretty, big. Chami, Mala. I mean, throughout the years, MK has played there. So it's definitely a venue in New York City, Brooklyn, that you're really seeing high caliber talent, along with local support and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a little step back. Let's go back in time. One day, Mario, you got into this industry, and let's talk about that. How exactly did you get into the music industry?
So, to be quite honest with you, I'm going to be honest, it was actually an utter and complete accident how I fell in this whole thing. I would say, a lot of my friends and, family would say I was just at the time, I was a young, reckless kid, just liked to go out, meet people, have some drinks, that was really what I did that at, a very young age. I think I started around 17 years old doing a little teen night stuff, nothing too crazy. And then I went to college and, I went to William Patterson University and really just grew out of a shell and just really hit the ground running with that. And I remember starting with doing hip hop college parties and just being a promoter selling tickets. It's really amping up, knowing everybody on campus to eventually, start my own thing while I'm there. And then, I still have a series running with, a couple partners of mine outside of TTWL. Shout out, TP, Mobsta, Julian, and Claude with Concert Crave and Hyperglow. We started something called Fear Theater. It's been about 5-6 years running. We still do it, and it's a little bit more hip hop oriented, but that kind of introduced me into the dance scene a little bit when Newark was really up on the rise with Jersey Club and Sling, Twerk, I mean Bryn Mawr, and Unique. There was a lot of people that are just you never seen that out of Jersey. Jersey was big in house music when it was a little bit older, and then you started seeing this Jersey Club trap era and 4B coming around the corner. It was a cool experience to be kind of a little bit in the industry at the time. And then I want to say, after, doing the party, stuff like that, I was actually originally going to be a lawyer, believe it or not.
No way. That's awesome.
I was planning to be a corporate lawyer. That was like kind of the game plan since I was in high school. And I'll never forget, I had a professor in college, Professor Scrafani. I remember, super good dude. He was a VP of supply chain for Macy's. And I'll never forget the question he asked. He was like, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? I was like, I want to be a lawyer. And he just straight, flat out, without no hesitation, said, no, you don't. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I've been saying this for the past 5 years of my life at this point. What do you mean I don't want to be a lawyer? And, he kind of said, listen, do me a favor, write 5 things on a piece of paper and then come back to me. So then, what I did was I kind of wrote it down. I just, I threw music in there just because I've always been a fan. To be honest with you, I was a bigger hip hop fan growing up. And I kind of threw music, stuff with entertainment. And he's like, well, it doesn't seem like it sounds like you want to be an entrepreneur. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess. So I'll never forget somebody in my hometown. He owned the company, and I didn't really know much about it. The company was called Phase One Network. He was a little bit of a mentor for me. His name was Frank Babar. I knew him growing up. I happened to get in contact with him. He said, hey, why don't you come figure out what you want to do, whether it's entertainment law or whatever you want in the music industry, and you can learn bits and pieces and, decide your fate there. So I went there. I worked, as an intern for about 6 months. I was going back and forth from school, just taking the bus from my college, going into the city. And, little did I know, I stepped in, a company that owned, 35,000 songs, complete classics from some of the original house tracks from Aletha Holloway, the way tracks to, Cynthia and, just crazy, new edition Candy Girl. I mean, the list goes on, and, I want to say Frank Babar was probably a big part in my life, along with a guy named Vicious. His name is Victor Ortiz, but he was big in the nightlife. He was a DJ, toured the world. His name was DJ Vicious Vic back in the day, and those two were really kind of mentors to me and started teaching me a little bit. And I learned a lot from them as the years went on. The amount of deals I've seen deals, that they did with certain artists, and it was crazy to see this whole side. And that's when I really started getting the mix and stepping up my game, not just on the music side of business, but with events, because it's really the only way you meet people is going out, networking, talking. That's really the whole gist of how you really get your foot in the game. And it's like you can either sit back and just like there's 2 ways to do it. You can look online and find emails and cold spam emails, and I definitely suggest that. But, it's about putting your name to the face, and I think that makes a really big difference in the music industry,
Absolutely.
So,
and I will beat this dead horse if it's the last thing I do. Every single one of these interviews, I will say this over and over again, because people ask us how you get successful in the industry and what it takes. And what you said right there about essentially having a mentor. One, every single person that's gone in this industry, honestly, it's any industry, it's not just music, but any single person that's gone in this industry has had someone who has flipped a switch for them. For me, I had him on the interview the other day. It was Cameron Kaminsky. He was the one that flipped a switch in my head that was like, this is what you want to do, go do it. He didn't do it on purpose. He just said something to me that flipped the switch. But for you, it was that mentor. And I think once you realize that it's once that switch flips for the first time, where you make that one connection that just pushes you up a little bit more, you're like, wait a second, what if I just repeated this process over and over and over and over again? And that's what networking is called. That's what that is. You're just going out because you're meeting people. And here we are. I literally just had you in passing, just talk to you because out of pure principle, I need to introduce myself to everyone that goes by me, even if I have no intention of talking to that person again. And you know how many times I've walked into a green room and I've had that passing introduction like we had and nothing came out of it? Probably 99 times, and you were the 1 out of 100. And guess what it's led to? It's led to us throwing a show together. We were supposed to have another one, which I don't even want to talk about that. I'm so sad about the Mado show. I'm so sad.
Yeah.
Coronavirus, man. But that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, is going out and meeting people. So I'm really happy to hear that that's how your journey started, and that it's also, it seems like your introduction to these different people is kind of what created your role across many different avenues in the music industry, not just event promotion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, it was a crazy start. And never, if you asked me about like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have never thought this was the whole big plan of my, life. Like, eventually, coming into it, and, I eventually ended up leaving Phase because, just a couple personal stuff. I wanted to focus a little bit more on events. And, a few months later, I ended up linking up with a company called Artist Influence that now I'm currently the COO of, where, we're doing some groundbreaking stuff. And I think we're, the next cutting edge marketing company.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think about because, in my lifetime, I've always just played sports, went to school, had my friends, that's how I started. And I went to college and the game completely switched up for me. And it's just goes to show for anybody, it's just like, it's not great money. I mean, you'll know it's not great money when you come into the music industry. You're working another job. I mean, I worked for a restaurant for years just to, start, getting things together and making a little bit of money, but to having that money in my pocket to go out. Luckily I have great parents that, have supported me through this whole thing, where I've kind of found my niche now, that I've really been making some noise, I would like to say, in the, the music industry a little bit, and hopefully continue to grow.
Yeah. And I'll say one thing before we move on. You mentioned that you didn't see yourself where you are now a few years ago. Fact of the matter is, you'll probably say that same thing 5 years from now, and you'll probably say that same thing 15 years from now. That is something that I've learned in music, is that, and that's not to say that you won't stay with what you're doing, but just simply however you envision whatever your project is. Lunar Lounge was created out of the idea of being a SoundCloud page. We were never going to be event promoters. We were going to be, the whole idea behind Lunar Lounge was, I'm so tired of producers being famous and DJs not being famous. We're going to make this whole SoundCloud page based off of purely DJ mixes. And then we were like, actually, that idea sucks. But you know what doesn't suck? Throwing events. So that's how we made that shift.
Yeah, it's sad the SoundCloud world is, on the decline at this point, but it is crazy to see that how you plan for something, and, as the years go by, you look back and you're like, oh my God, this is completely what I didn't think. And I remember, starting, TTYL. I mean, right before we started, I did my first Miami Music Week party. Never stepped foot in Miami before. Let me just say that. The company was going out there. They wanted to make a big splash. So, we did sort of a partnership. The label called Uprise. It's a indie label in New York City. And, it was the first time I really kind of stepped up and threw something at that caliber. And to be honest, the outcome I didn't expect. We did it at the Epic Hotel. We did about over 1,200 people, and it was just in and out all day, not all at once, but it was just a crazy feeling and experience. And I think that was, the adrenaline to really kind of kick me off in the right direction, to come back and do some events in Jersey, back where, I'm born and raised Jersey. So to come back, I did headliners, small event with Brooke Evers. And then, stepping up to eventually get an opportunity with Avant Gardner, and, throwing a sold out show with Sid, which, kind of put the company on the map, which I, never expected to, see that type of outcome. And, my partner is Chris and Sean. I remember, and at the time, Jason Keats and Parker Russo were both working with us, and all of us were ecstatic. We threw back-to-back events. We did a sold-out show with Sid. Week after, we did, and it wasn't sold out, but we did a great turnout for Josh Wing for his birthday on 420, which was really cool to do at Quantum. Nice. And at the time was Analog, and it's just like crazy to think about. It was like now, fast forward, we meet, and I'm doing a show once, twice a month, and was on the scale to be doing 3 or 4 a month, and start doing some big talent buying. And so unfortunately, stuff fell through, but yeah, I know we'll pick back up. The industry is all crazy right now, but I think it really will progress.
It will, but what's cool to think about is, make an analogy before we switch into some of the other stuff you've done. You think about Webster Hall. Webster Hall, and what's really funny is the story I'm about to tell you. I moved to New York in 2017. So pre-2017, New York EDM industry is just, I don't know. I wasn't there. So everyone that I ever talked to was, Webster Hall was the best. Webster Hall was the best. And I remember that Skrillex show, I saw it come across my phone because I have Skrillex's tweets on full. I get all Skrillex's tweets to my phone because that should be a thing. And I was like, I should buy a ticket, but I'm supposed to go away that weekend. And there's by the time I made a decision, it was too late. All the tickets were sold out. So I never went to Webster. And actually, the first time I ever stepped foot in Webster was after it reopened. But when you think about that closing of Webster, a lot of people were really sad because they felt like a piece of New York was lost, which is true. Webster has a lot of culture. But in that 2-year period, you saw a resurgence in shows at places like Szymanski, at places like Analog or Quantum. Pre-Output, when that closed, that was happening. So coronavirus, really, really not great. But it is creating a shift in this industry, and this industry, more than any other industry, knows how to adapt because you have to adapt. You've got scrappy people who are not doing this for the money. They are doing it because they have a passion for it, and the money is just a necessity to survive. So these people are adapting constantly to make that happen. So I agree with you. This will definitely come back. And as we talk about adapting, one of the things that you yourself did is you just talked a lot about all these events that you were throwing, all these shows that you threw, but you ended up adapting yourself into more of the business space. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely kind of stepped foot into the music marketing space. After I left FaZe, I learned a lot there, and I wanted to continue learning because I really enjoyed marketing. I enjoyed helping out artists and, getting them to a point where their music is being heard, because there are a lot of talented artists out there in the world right now. But it's just at the end of the day, what it's really about is the amount of influx of music that's coming in daily. It's how do you weed out the good from the bad? And, it was a crazy rate to transition, but, it's something that I really have a passion about, and I've learned and I keep learning every day, and I want to keep stepping up and moving forward towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's super cool. And in talking about that, I want to hear a little bit about this marketing stuff that you've been doing. I know we touched on it, but I want to hear really, because there's artists out here that want to understand how they should be getting their music out there, and there's a lot of importance in organic, but there's also a lot of importance in paid. And so tell me a little bit about what you've been doing there.
Well, I'll start with the company I work with. The company's about a little under 2 years old now. I started with it about 6 months ago. The company's called Artist Influence. We're cutting edge marketing. We do everything across the board: SoundCloud, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Music. I mean, we do everything in regards to pushing users and pushing organic people to become real fans, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. And stepping into that, with your question, to parlay it, how artists should be investing in themselves is something that I've been accustomed to and told artists over and over for years. Like, listen, the age of just a record moving because it was a great record is over. you know, I don't think people realize that. I think they think it's like the old days when even in the old days, you know, it was going out, handing out CDs, doing the old distro type of thing, meeting people, where now it's, you know, completely a technology based, you know, market where, you know, before it was like putting out EPs and mixtapes to now being a single driven market. You know, for the artists out there, you know, the one thing that you can do is like you can do as much free work as you want. But
Mm.
I always said, you know, and the reason why I always paid artists on time was, you know, I always said, listen, you got to be investing in yourself, whether it be great content, you're paying a great videographer, photographer, you know, getting press shots, getting cool content out there. You know, that consistency is going to help build your following. It's just going to help the algorithms. You know, whether it's a song you're putting out or just a real content piece of video that you're putting out on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, like all this stuff is, you know, used as marketing tools. Labels use everything. Anything that they can get their hands through to start pushing, they will. You know, another thing about that is, you know, not saying that you always have to spend money to finally, you know, see it movement, but, you know, it's either going to do hours and hours of handwork, collecting emails, DMing as many people as possible, you know, joining engagement groups on Instagram. There's a ton of different things that you can be doing, but you know, the most important thing about investing in yourself is if you truly believe and you want to be an artist and you're hungry, it's, you know, instead of going to that bar or going out with your spending this money, it's, you know, take that, you know, $250 goes a long way in this industry.
Yep.
You spend $250 on ads. You believe, even if you don't know how to do ads, a couple YouTube videos. I mean, you know, people always say like, oh, I don't know how to do Facebook ads. You know, I learned from just watching YouTube videos and eventually taking a class to really get everything about a Facebook pixel and, you know, pushing to a targeted audiences and creating a custom audience. Like, there's a lot of things you can learn online and a lot of people can take advantage of. And if you know and you really truly believe in yourself, why not take that investment risk? Why not, when you get paid out by a promoter, you know, $250 because you brought like 30, 50 people to a party and, you know, it was a great party, your friends had a good time. It's better spending on drinks. You know, go home at the end of the night, put that $250 in your pocket and reinvest it, because, you know, you got to think of yourself as an investment, because that's what it really is.
And not to cut you off, but I buy into that so much. So there's a couple things there. Something Jaws said. Jaws did he did a class with, I forget, it was Icon or one of those classes. And he went and spoke, and what he said was, you know, for me to get to where I was, I am a normal guy. I'm a normal random dude. And it's actually funny, if you look at Sam Vogel's Facebook, he literally is using just a regular old record box controller. Yeah, that's great. Sorry, I actually need to charge my phone so I can keep this Instagram live going. And what he said was, for me to get to where I was, I had to be obsessive over this stuff. I had to spend so much time that I actually truly sacrificed. The example he used was seeing girls and seeing friends and seeing people. And any of my friends know the past 2 to 3 years for me, we've sacrificed a lot to get to where we are. And you know what? That's an unfortunate truth. We can sit here all day and we can talk about how we can be all, hey, go out and meet people and network and be positive. But like, one thing that you can't get around is you got to do a shit ton of hard work. So one, that's the case. And something that comes along with that is there's basically 2 resources that'll help you in this industry. It's time and money. And, you know, money is a tougher one to talk about because you never want to have everyone has the same amount of time. So anyone can put in hard work. Money is challenging because you never want to have that conversation and say that other people will do better for you than you because they have more money. But that's just a fact. The fact is that money can be used for investments across a variety of different things. And so when you're thinking about creating good content, when you're thinking about creating good ads, you just have to simply acknowledge that costs money. And so if you're able to cut back in other areas, it'll help you there.
Yeah, and, you know, the one thing I will say is, you know, touch back on what you were talking about, you know, is that sacrifice is, you know, people have to realize that if you really want to be in this industry, it is all a sacrifice. Like, you know, you can't go around with 6 of your friends in a club to go backstage and go network. I can tell you plenty of nights where I've gone to Avant Gardner. I mean, I know people there, so it's not like I'm going by myself, or I'll go with one buddy, and I know a couple of people there to get us backstage. But there's a lot of sacrifices. My friends are all from Jersey. I'm always out in Brooklyn. They're like, "Yo, you're always out in Brooklyn," and it's just like, the factor of the matter is I'm spending this time because you never know who you're going to meet there. That one contact can change the whole game for you. That one contact can bring you so far out. And it's like, you got to make that decision. Are you going to go to the club with your friends and go drink on a table, or go in the GA, hang out, get drunk, and then go home? Or is it, I'm not saying don't drink. I mean, there's been nights where I don't drink, but there's been nights where, I had 3, just a couple over a few hours, just to network, talk to people, nice and relaxing, and then I go home. Like it's really is a sacrifice, like you said, and then that's a great point made. It's you got to pick and choose. There's no other way around it.
I definitely you don't have to not drink. I made a tweet and I hate starting a sentence with I tweeted something, but it came to my mind. I said, man, in quarantine, I really could use a night of just going into the green room and being 20% more drunk than I want to be. Because, like, that's what's actually kind of funny about networking in the music industry is, like, you meet everyone while you're kind of, like, a little bit intoxicated. But if you're doing this the right way, like, for me, and I'm sure I know you're the same way, like, I am actually on a Saturday, like, it's like, so Saturday is your free time, right? Saturday is when you do whatever you want to do. That's why you... Sorry, I'm hanging up there. That's why you go out on the weekend, because that's what you want to do with your free time. And so for me, I would rather be networking on a Saturday than be going out. So that's why I'm driven to go do that. So
yeah, I mean, listen, I've had my fair shares of, there's a certain artist or there's a certain contact that comes into town and I haven't seen in a while, and we're friends, a little bit outside of the music industry, where I'm hopping on an Uber back into Jersey City because there's no way I'm taking the train in kind of condition. But I'm not saying don't be a stiffler, but you got to understand, it's about composure. It's people don't want somebody walking around that's sloppy and wants to do business like
definitely.
And that's you gotta learn that middle ground of not going overboard, but having a good time while you're working. And that's something that a lot of people, don't learn in the beginning. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Luckily, I was a promoter before, because when I was a promoter and first started, I mean, I was just getting drunk. And, eventually I'll never forget. I was like, I had a ban on, when I threw an event, I didn't drink a beer, like nothing. I didn't touch it. I just learned that from over the years. And then I'll never forget, I met my first agent. He's not a Paradigm anymore. His name is John Jung. He shows up. I did a show at actually Club Karma in Jersey. I did an 18+ show with Loud Pack and Tease right after Tease dropped Whistle. And I'll never forget, it was my first agent. I'm thinking I'm meeting somebody like suit up. Like, I don't know. I've never met an agent before.
Oh, no, I know where this is going. Oh dear.
And he just shows up and he's like, just in regular clothes. He's like, yo, what's up, dude? He's like, he's just up. I'm John. I'm like, oh shit. And eventually the night goes on. He's like, come on, take a shot. And I'm like, I don't do this. But, after a couple persistent tries, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Don't twist my arm. Like, it's like, you asked twice, 3 times. I was like, all right, let's do it. And, that's when I learned that you got to have a balance. Not, I didn't go crazy and have 10 and fucking not be able to walk home. But, I had a couple talk, network, and, that's how you do it. And that's how you learn in the industry.
Absolutely. And then let me just be clear for anyone that's keeping track here. I am by no means saying that you should go out and get drunk when you're networking. All I'm saying is that it's funny because, I went out to Joyride because I wanted to see Joyride, and you were there, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure I network too. But it's actually something that is really funny about it is that you get into the industry in the beginning. You get into, let's just use electronic music. You start going to these things in the beginning because they're fun and you want to have fun. And eventually you're having so much fun that you actually want to be doing it all the time. And then there's that little I mean, it's not little, it's a long period, but we'll call it the startup phase. There's definitely that startup phase where you know that you need to shift yourself from essentially outside of the green room in the GA to in the green room. You need to get yourself there. And frankly, that's actually literally why this thing is called the green room, is because that's where those conversations happen. So you know you need to get into the green room, and you do whatever you got to do. For me, it was being a writer for Run the Trap. For you, it was being an event promoter. You do what you got to do, and so then you start going to these events very sober, very calculated. And then once you kind of push through that barrier, I mean, like I said, it's always happening, right? We're always going to shows. We're always networking. We're always trying to meet new people. But at a certain point, right, like you and I, we pretty much can go to any New York show and we're going to know at least, 2, 3, 4 people that are quote unquote in the green room. But it's an interesting kind of concept to think about, that you're turning what is essentially a really, really fun event into work. But that's how this stuff works.
And that's why you have a passion for it, right? Like you know the feeling. It's that feeling of, for me, it's like, yeah, I make a little bit of money. I make some money on an event, but even sometimes you take losses. I mean, this is the industry. In the event side, it's a win if you break even.
Yeah.
Right. I think I've always said that to you. It's like, listen, we break even, it's a win, because at the end of the day, as long as I'm able to not only supply great talent that's on the on the uprise, or, currently hot, or just in general that I like, it's, having that mindset that like, okay, I'm not going to make money, but the people that are coming, the customers that I have coming are going to have the greatest time that they have. And they're going to enjoy themselves because they're going to want to come back. And eventually the name will keep spreading and it'll be on your own.
Absolutely.
And the last thing I do want to touch upon is because, the conversations in the green room is one great point, but the one thing I will say is, depending on the DJ, I will always go out, and I won't go near everybody, but I need to see the DJ in GA, because that's the only way you can tell if the DJ is a killer DJ. He's got some nice cuts, great transitions.
True.
You can't see that. You got to see the crowd reaction from behind. That's something I've learned over the years, and why I've, come into this fluorescent of how I've learned if a DJ is going to either get big, whether it's on the production side or, the live DJ side, and it's kind of going from there. I think you need a little bit of both nowadays, unless like, you're super big. And I'm not going to lie, I've seen some bad DJs that are, bigger. I mean, I don't want to call out any names, but I have some big time DJs that I was like, what kind of transitions are these? Like, how is this guy even selling 3,000 tickets type of thing? But we won't go into that. I won't figure out.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that, because for us, I actually was interviewing Cali one day, and what ended up happening was 1788L opened for him. And I'm interviewing Cali, and Cali is like my favorite artist in the world, like at the time, and all still one of my like favorites, but one of my favorites at the time. And I'm realizing that 1788L is going on in a second, and I'm sitting next to my artist, but I'm like, but I also want to see 1788L, and I can't do both. I simply cannot. So after about 50, we did an interview, we did the thing. And I chatted him up for about 5-10 minutes, and I was just like, Nathan, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I really want to go see 1788L. And he was like, you should go see him right now. And I was like, it was a pleasure meeting you. I'm a big fan. Thank you so much. And I just went out of the green room, and I went into GA to watch him. And that was when he did the Warsaw show in New York. And I don't know if you've been to that venue called Warsaw, or it's Poland. Yeah, it's a Poland.
Yeah, I know the Polish one right on the edge.
Yeah, it might not be called Warsaw. I might have totally just made that up. But nonetheless, it was super funny to have that moment where I was like, yeah, this is super cool, and I'm really happy that I'm meeting my favorite artist. But I also want to see 1788L live, because that dude is tight.
There's some, like I said, Joyride was one of the artists, and Wax Motif. That was a killer show that may have been put on. I mean, there's certain artists where I'll just go and I don't even care about going back, and I'll make the contact at the end. But there's some artists that I have on my list that if they're in town, I must go see them.
Yeah.
It's more of a fan thing than, or else like, why are you doing this if you're not a fan of somebody, Like, do you really like the music if you're not a fan of a certain caliber, that's really what it is for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to think. You were saying something earlier about, damn, I'm not even gonna remember it. Um, okay, it'll come back to me in a second. But anyways, so we talked a lot about event promotion. We talked about your switch. We talked about marketing. Before we move on from marketing, was there anything else that you wanted to add about that? Anything else you wanted to share? When we kind of spoke ahead of time, the kind of precursor to this, you talked a lot about how artists aren't putting money in the right places, and we touched on the money situation here, but is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we touched upon it a little bit, but because I've seen a lot of crazy stuff in New York City and New Jersey, like guys pre-buying tickets and putting $1,000 down, and it's like, what I want to kind of tell artists, it's not always about getting mass numbers. It's about building a fan base, and that's what I think people need to understand. And put money into promotion that are not only going to get you streams, because I get it. You want that 100K, 200K, where you're doing enough, whether you're doing indie playlisting or, some other method on Spotify or YouTube or whatever the case may be. But, it's really getting that fan base and putting the money towards that, whether it be, finding some influencers page that you think your content would fit on, or, really going and digging deep in Twitter, because I think people think Twitter is just something that is just there. But I've seen a lot of artists that have gotten deals off of Twitter alone. And it's just, it's hip hop is a little bit different, but Lil Nas X, he started off of Twitter and TikTok. Like, people don't understand that is, he was a very smart kid, and, he used Reddit as well. There's a ton of different things you can do. Mm-hmm. And I think to research and see what's out there and what does the best for your type of music, what your type of genre, and think about putting some money aside out of your pocket to invest in it.
Yeah.
Go get there's a couple of promotional companies out there that do a great job, that do DJ promo service. And if you think your song's really it, send it to them. Why not? And if they're like, hey, this is $400, but we can send it out to all these DJs and get you DJ support. We think the song is going to go, dude. Invest in yourself, because that's the only way it's not just going to happen anymore. The days of a song just moving because it's moving, even if you think, in all genres, if you think nobody's putting money behind big artists that are popping, and even just in the hip hop space, these kids that expect guys to he was just got big off of SoundCloud. I guarantee you there was somebody doing a 50 million repost campaign on them and really blew up the song and hit the algorithm. Ton of different things that people don't understand that are behind this, and these major labels and even the indie labels make it look super organic. But the point is to gain a fan base from it. It's not just about getting the high numbers. It's how do you build a fan base? It's from doing shows, selling tickets for your shows, bringing your friends out, but turning your friends into fans, and meeting people and networking and be like, hey man, he's like, kill your set. Like, hey man, follow me on Instagram. Mm-hmm. You should come to the show. And remembering that people make a list. Like, oh man, he came up to me. These are new followers that are at my show. We make a list. Next time I'm going to play, I'm going to hit them up.
No doubt.
It's not about, asking your friends, hey, buy tickets. You got to go out there and do it. That's something that I learned at a very young age. I was selling, before I started doing my own parties, I was selling, I kid you not, there were some events where I sold over 200 tickets myself, and I was in college and knew everybody. But, you got to start somewhere. Yeah. But, that's really the last thing I would probably say on that point.
Yeah. Well, I got to real quickly say the man that introduced us himself, I don't know if he's still here, but Lion did just hop into the chat on the IG. So what's up, Lion? Everything you said is absolutely true, and it triggered what I was going to say earlier. You talked about in the event space, it's a goal to break even. To give people context of how true that is, the reason that Lunar Lounge became what it was literally stemmed from the fact that when I moved to New York, I got this job that I still have, it is what I do for a living. but I could not get the concept of DJing out of my head. I couldn't stop. I tried. And I just decided, and I told the story with when Cameron was on, after that moment that I was just going to do whatever I needed to do to DJ in New York. And a lot of the advice I heard was throw your own parties. So my goal was never, ever to make money off any of this. My goal was I just simply can't stop thinking about DJing and I want to do it. So whatever. I have to throw money at the problem. Fine. That's fine. We'll do that. And it turned itself into what this is. And you think about that Szymanski show with Odd Mob, the Excerpt show with you at Quantum, like none of that was done for us to make money. That was done because twofold. One, the immediate thing is like I've got an itch that I can't scratch, and I got to tell you, being in quarantine, that itch is so, oh my God, I got to scratch it so bad. And two, once you find a mechanism to scratch that itch and you realize that you can do it continuously, then you kind of shift a little bit into a business mode. So for you, there was that moment with your mentor who was like, you don't want to be a lawyer. And you were like, okay, you're right. I want to do music. How do I want to do it? So for me, event promotion, okay, great. So event promotion is how I want to do this whole music thing. Then it's like, all right, word. I don't care what happens on this show. What I care about is that 700 people show up and they have the time of their life. And I'll leave you with a good story before we kind of close it out. I don't know if I've ever told you this, actually. This is probably the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. So I finished my show at Szymanski, and right. I am on an absolute high, right? Odd Mob is my favorite artist, so I just booked him. He threw down an awesome set. I had a really good set with, like, it went really well. The show was packed. Everyone's having a great time. And I had a bunch of friends visit me, so I am just on cloud nine, and I'm like, all right, guys, time to go. Let's call it Uber. So I went to, you know, that abandoned field near Szymanski?
Yeah.
I had to, after a packed crowd, I had to go relieve myself, and I went over there, and there's these dudes just staring at me, and I'm thinking, like, stop staring at me, like, I'm trying to do my thing, leave me alone. And they're like, yo, that's the dude that, like, threw the party. And I was like, okay, like, give me a sec, I'll come talk to you. And I walk over to them, and they're like, yo, that was so sick, blah, blah, blah. I was like, thanks, guys, for coming. Where are you from? I'm thinking to myself, fantastic. I got 3 new New York fans. Like, I'm going to close in on them. We're going to get new fans. And they go, Chicago. And I'm drunk at this point. I start laughing. I'm like, stop fucking with me. You're not from Chicago. Where are you from? We're in New York. You're from Manhattan, Staten Island, Long Island. Bro, we're from Chicago. I'm like, okay, so what are you doing in New York? You guys like on a long week? No, we're here for the show. What? Yeah, we saw that Odd Mob was coming to New York, and we wanted to make a boys trip out of it because we love Odd Mob. I literally was like, you're fucking with me. Stop. So these 3 dudes, and I don't know, they might be, we talk every now and then on Instagram now. These 3 dudes literally saw this show, and they were so excited about the same thing that I am equally excited about, that they decided to spend their money and take off time from work and do a boys trip to New York. Of course, I'm sure they did other stuff too, but mainly for that show. Like, what? That's touching
crazy.
People's lives right there. That's incredible, and that's why we do this stuff. I know it sounds corny, I know it sounds cheesy, but like when you have someone tell you they flew out from Chicago to come to your show, I mean, that's just, come on, man. It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, I think people think it's like you said, you know, looking in on the outside, it looks corny to people, but on the inside, you know, as a promoter, like, man, these people that are buzzing talking about this party and how much they had a good time, and you know, they met so many people, they danced, the vibe was sick. Like, that is what, you know, I don't do it for just the money. You know, at the end of the day, there's not a lot of money in this. You take sometimes you get a big win, but there's a lot of times you take a big loss, you know, or even just a loss in general. Like I said, a break even's a win to me. I think the most important thing is like, if people are ecstatic talking about the party, and you know, that's when you have that great feeling, and that's what really kind of gets it going. Not the, oh yeah, I just made a shit ton of money. Yeah, that's a fucking bonus, but I wouldn't call that the main reason why, you do this. It's a perk to it, but you gotta love it because it is a
It's so
stressful.
stressful, bro. It's so stressful.
Especially for everybody on here that, sees this or is on right now, just buy your tickets in advance. It's a 5 week
Please,
life, a lot
we
of
beg
buy your
you,
tickets in advance.
bro.
It's crazy.
I have a coworker of mine who literally, Ian, I don't think you're watching, but if you are, he comes to every show. He never lets me down. He has never let me down. But he just refuses to buy in advance because he's just like, ah. I'm like, dude, you're gonna come anyways. Buy ahead of time so I can count. At the end of the day, because he ends up coming anyways, he pays more money in tickets and it ends up helping me. Sure, fine. But oh my God, guys, buy your tickets in advance. And let me break it down for you why you need to buy your tickets in advance. You think it's just, oh, great, sure, because obviously you want your money earlier. It's because literally we are tearing out our hair every single time leading up to the show. I'll leave with one last story. I used to be the social chair for my fraternity, and I was also the DJ in the fraternity, and so every time I felt very, very personally attached to this party because the theme, the actual music itself, the alcohol vendors. I mean, well, we didn't have any alcohol at those parties. My bad. And all that shit was planned by me. And so when 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock rolled around and we were competing with SIGAP and Fiji, I was like, damn, are they going to pick us? Are they going to pick Fiji? Or who are they going to pick? And then like at 9 o'clock, without failure, actually probably like 10 o'clock, without failure, every single time, people would they'd come. It would look like it was going to be a bad party, and at the last second, everyone would come. And that is the equivalent. That is the college equivalent of people who buy tickets at the last second. It's like
On the last second, it's just like, hey, you show up, and it's like now I'm kind of immune to it. When I first started doing bigger events,
shove it down. You just shove that emotion down.
Yeah, that. But like, if you realize, you have a game plan, you have a set, if you really know what you're doing and what your crowd really likes, that comes out consistently for you, and there's going to be those people, you put the right lineup together, you just gotta push it to the max. I mean, I think I tell you, I do 30,000 flyers for my shows, and that's like an old school thing, just so people see it. Ads, flyers. I mean, obviously we have promoters, posting in Facebook groups. Like I've really learned a lot along the way, and it's really been insane. I mean, I still do the flyers myself because I don't even trust to pay people to go out and do it. I'll do 30,000 flyers myself. I remember before
You put
Sid,
30,000 physical flyers?
You,
Where do you put them?
Oh yeah, dude, I hand them out at every show. I'm out at 4 a.m. on the corner, like, just
That's how I met Billy.
Really.
That's how I met Billy. He did that at a Shemansky show.
Yes. I told Billy, like, yo, this is what you got to do. Like, this is how you do it. It doesn't seem effective, but it really does. You might not it's just about awareness at the end of the day. That's in everything in music. It's about awareness. It has nothing to do with, you got to think, all right, if I'm going to do 30,000 flyers, let's just say 20,000, I know at least you're not going to get like 10%, but I like to think at least 3% is coming out of it. It's all about return on investment. If I know I'm going to spend, let's just say, I don't know, $360 on flyers, I have to make it worth my while. I need to be able to get at least 40% profit off of that. So, I'm selling about probably off all those flyers, whether it be indirect, where they directly buy off the flyer, or they see an ad and like, oh man, I remember this flyer. They're buying it. That's the way I see it.
Or they even buy a ticket 3 or 4 shows down the road. That's really where it comes in, right? And you and I have talked about this a lot. It's why you brand the actual promoter, right? Because, hey, I don't want to go to the show that you have given me because I don't like the artist, but I like the idea behind the show itself, and I'll keep you in mind for the future. And that's what the best are doing. They're not selling you. I mean, we don't have time to go into to go into Space Yacht's question mark lineups and Brownies and Lemonade's question mark lineups. But like that's that idea, right? And they're the classic example. But woof, gotta love this industry, man.
There's, we can go on and on about, everything that goes about it. I think the last thing I will say, it's, everything is an investment, especially in the music industry. And it's not just an investment in just money. Like I said, you have to put money in, but it's really about the time. It's a grind. Don't expect to come in the industry and start making a boatload of money and being so successful. It takes artists years to get to the point that they're going to get to the level they want to get. It takes event promoters, years to get a following, figure out a program, figure out a system to get it. It's just like everything on all sides. And there's so many different parts in the music industry that's, crazy, music supervisors, agents, like I said, promoters, managers, marketing people. Like there's a ton of different things besides just being an artist. But, that's where I'll kind of lead it off there.
And think about what we're doing now. I love talking to the people, but why do y'all think we spend an hour a week? Because we're grinding too. We're trying to get our names out there, and this is part of it. So, Amen. Mario Danza, everybody. This guy's great. So we'll shout out the socials. It's Mario_Danza, yeah. And we've got TTYL events. We've got All About House.
Yeah, it's Mario__Danza. I know. I fucked up one day.
Two underscores?
Dude, so what happened was I changed my I won't even remember the name, but I changed my name as a joke because my friend said to do it. So I was like, Kevin Kirsch, a good friend of mine, college roommate, goes, yo, change your name to this. I'm not even just going to say it on the camera. I know my mom's probably watching this. So I did for like a day, just as a joke. And I go to fucking get it back. And it's like, they're like, yeah, it's gone. Somebody took my name. And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And now I'm stuck with it. Yeah, it was one of those fucking bot things where they just take up, the usernames that change. So now I got the double underscore. It's a pain in the ass to give people because no one gives out phone numbers anymore. It's always like, oh, what's your Instagram? So, but yes, it's Mario__Danza, TTYL events, and, All About House. It's all _about house. And if you want to check out my marketing company, it's Artist Influence. A lot of things there, but, shout out for me and all my friends and everybody joining. And Aaron, I appreciate you for the opportunity. Thank you so much, brother. It was fun. It was a great time.
Yeah.
And I thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And hey, to all Mario's friends that are watching, at Lunar Lounge Presents. At Azor Music.
There it is.
We'll see you in New York soon. We're gonna get this ball rolling. We're getting another show. I think Frankie's still with us. We'll get Frankie involved. We'll get something going soon. It's bound to happen.
Yes, Frankie will be in New York City playing. I want to see him spin. So there's a lot of guys out in New York City right now.
Frankie, no matter what he says, we'll get him to end up in New York long term. He's gonna comment some crap on the IG. No, I won't. Not a chance. He'll end up in New York.
Listen, it never knows, but maybe he'll be end up flying back and forth because I know Frankie is a great DJ from what I'm hearing, and I'm excited to see it. And I know he brings people out, and that's, the most important thing. And there's a lot, the one thing I will say is there's a lot of stuff going on in New York City right now as far as upcoming artists, which is really cool.
Amen, brother. All right, man, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, all right? And everybody else, thank you.
Peace out.
All right.